Welcome to the Magneticflux. I'm your host, Susan, and today we'll be doing a countdown of the top 10 most dangerous rides in the world. While there seems to be some security when one sees the numerous restraints that roller coasters and other intense thrill rides have, these rides are not as safe as one might think. Even the greatest amount of safety and maintenance checks can't prevent a split-second malfunction. The International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, IAAPA, estimates the chance of being killed on an amusement park ride is just 1 in 750 million. Here is the list of top 10 deadliest rides in the world, only for educational purposes. Number 10 is Derby Racer, Revere Beach, Massachusetts. The Derby Racer has a spotted history, beginning right when it opened in 1910. The owner of the Revere Beach theme park at the time stood up to present a lecture on amusement park safety. And in a bout of sheer irony, he fell from one of the coaster's cars and was killed instantly. In 1917, another fatality occurred when a passenger lost his hat on the coaster's initial incline, and in trying to retrieve it, he fell onto the opposing track, was hit by the other car, and then dragged a total of 35 feet. Number 9 is Mission Space, Disney World, Florida. Mission Space is controversial for being one of the most intense spaceflight simulators accessible to the public, being connected to a centrifuge similar to that used by NASA trainees. Passengers are spun, being subject to 2.5 Gs of force, twice that of gravity, in what is meant to achieve similar weightlessness to that which astronauts experience. Between the summers of 2005 and 2006, park employees had to manage 200 injuries caused by the ride, including incidents of people passing out, suffering chest pain, or even suffering from irregular heartbeats. Number 8 is Batman the Ride, Six Flags Over Georgia, Georgia. This coaster itself is not for the faint of heart, reaching speeds of 80 kilometers per hour and twisting riders through harrowing inverted loops and turns, and boasting a 105-foot drop. However, the inverted concept of the ride proved deadly in the spring of 2002, when a 58-year-old employee was struck in the head by the dangling leg of a 14-year-old rider and later died in a hospital. The girl was also taken to the hospital afterwards, yet she sustained only mild injuries. Number 7 is Rough Riders, Coney Island, New York. The name Rough Riders was what initially drew attention to this ride, being the name that President Theodore Roosevelt used for his cavalry regiment. It opened in 1915 and differed from modern coasters in that each car had a ride-on driver, akin to what might find in a modern subway train. Everything was going smoothly until the car abruptly accelerated, causing its wheels to leave the track as the whole car flipped and turned on its side. Ahead, 30 feet off the ground, was an iron railing which the passengers were then flung into. Number 6 is Verruckt Waterslide, Schlitterbahn, Kansas City. Effectively earning its name, which is German for crazy, Verruckt opened in July 2014, being the tallest waterslide in the world at the time, with a height of 168 feet 7 inches. Upon its initial testing, there were concerns surrounding the ride's safety, with rafts being flung into the air and reaching speeds of 70 kilometers per hour. Nonetheless, it opened to the public. In the year following its grand opening, at least 13 riders complained of injuries from being thrown into the netting, receiving concussions, or slipped and herniated discs. Number 5 is Fujin Raijin 2, Expoland, Suita, Japan. Disaster struck on May 5, 2007, conveniently being the same date that Children's Day is celebrated in Japan. The seated coaster had operated for 15 years beforehand with no issues, being one of the most popular attractions at Expoland. The coaster was unique in that it was designed for riders to remain standing and reached a top speed of 75 kilometers per hour. The ride was almost over when one of the wheel axles on the car broke, causing it to lurch to the side and a woman to die due to smashing her head into the guardrail. Number 4 is Big Dipper, Battersea Park, London, England. The incidents attributed to this ride have been referred to as the worst roller coaster accidents in history. Built in 1951, this wooden roller coaster experienced issues right from its launch, with the ride shutting down at one point that year as one of the empty cars derailed, knocked over a railing, and left the passengers in the other car stranded. Later, another accident would occur in which a woman left with a broken arm. Number 3 is Cyclone, Coney Island, New York. This coaster is one of the few that have a dark past but still remain open to this day. The Cyclone is one of the more iconic representations of Coney Island, having been named a New York landmark in 1988. The coaster first launched in 1927, but its first fatality didn't occur until 1985, where a 29-year-old man decided to stand up in the middle of the ride and smashed his head on a support crossbeam. He died instantly. Number 2 is Mindbender Fantasyland, Edmonton, Alberta. This is the only indoor coaster on the list, with this high-speed triple-loop coaster being the largest of its kind in the world. For years, ironically, it was touted as the world's safest coaster, yet things went awry in 1986, only one day after an inspection deemed the ride to be safe. It was believed that there was an issue with the final car's wheels, as it began to sway after completing one of the loops. Number 1 is Puff the Little Fire Dragon, Lagoon, Utah. This final incident shows that rides don't need to be overly intense or strenuous to be deadly. The coaster in question is Puff the Little Fire Dragon at Lagoon in Utah, a small children's coaster with nothing more than a few bumps in the track. Tragedy struck in 1989 when a 6-year-old boy named Ryan Beckstead mistakenly tried to unbuckle his seatbelt after one lap, thinking the ride was over, when in reality, the ride goes around multiple times. He fell from the car. Be sure and leave a comment in the comment section below.